number of special guests with us today. The first of whom is our candidate for Lieutenant Governor Sam Skardon, and Representative Jermaine Johnson will be here in a few minutes. I'm letting them go first because they have somewhere else they have to be. So, Sam, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
First of all, has anybody seen Jermaine speak before? Has anybody met Jermaine speak? Okay, good. So about half the room knows I was brought onto this ticket to balance out his height and charisma. He'll be the first one to tell you he went from no house to the state house, and now he's running for the governor's mansion. That will create a transformational governor for South Carolina.
That's right.
No one who has sat in that office has ever brought with them the experiences and the values that Jermaine is going to bring about. I had the honor of working on the staff of Congressman John Lewis, the great civil rights leader of Congressman. And I always try to tell people about the endless source of inspiration that he was for me and should be for all of us. Yeah, I was 22 years old on my first day and walked into his office in the Capitol, and I noticed that above his desk in the U.S. Capitol building, he had a framed library card. Does anybody ever framed their library card? The library in Troy, Alabama invited him back for a book signing of his autobiography. I gave him a library card that he framed and kept in the U.S. Capitol building. So I like to think of that story, and it's an honor to run with Jermaine, someone who, as a teenager, faced those same impossible odds. His family couldn't keep a roof over her head. He became an emancipated minor at 16 years old. Imagine how hard it would have been to ever think you could succeed in life, and how much it takes to not accept the impossible barriers in front of you. Just like John Lewis did when he was a 16-year-old, just like Jermaine did when he was a 16-year-old. But I've seen the framed library card. I'm standing next to our nominee for governor. I know that if we work hard
I heard that my lieutenant governor was coming here today. Y'all were packed out in here. Oh my goodness. Y'all, first of all, let me thank my lieutenant governor for doing such a phenomenal job. Sam has a commitment to helping the most marginalized communities out. And he understood long before being the nominee for lieutenant governor of South Carolina that it's not about a title. It's not about getting the recognition. It's not about having somebody give you kudos or passing the back. He just did it just because it was the right thing to do. And he comes from good stock. He's got good family ties. And the fact that he, long before getting involved with this, he wanted to get in some good trouble. I know some of y'all in here probably remember when we used to be able to say, "Thank God for Mississippi." Unfortunately, we can no longer say thank God for Mississippi. Mississippi is in the top 10 of public education. We are still at the bottom of the list. For far too long, over 2 decades, we've been at the top of the list that we should be at the bottom of, and at the bottom of the list we should be at the top of. We are still top 10 in the country for domestic violence. We are still one of 2 states that does not have a hate crime legislation. We are only one of 10 states that has not agreed to expand Medicaid. We are still one of the only states that does not have a minimum wage. We are a state that is overly run and controlled by single-party rule. For over 2 decades, there is a supermajority in the House, a supermajority in the Senate for the first time in 150 years. They have the governor's mansion, they have agriculture, they have comptroller general, they have attorney general, they have treasurer, they have every congressional seat with the exception of Congressman Clyburn. They have education, any appointed position, Republican, department heads, appointed Republican. These are all the problems that we have in the state because they lay on the shoulders of one single party. And if this party was the party that was going to fix all of these issues that we are facing every single day in this state, then what is their excuse for why not they have not fixed them already? How come they have not addressed all of these issues in the state? It is because the status quo keeps them in power, the status quo keeps their pockets lined, and if you don't think kickbacks are happening, I just came from the State House right now, and we just passed the second part of the budget. The second part of the budget is the community reinvestment dollars, or how y'all would call them, earmarks. They weren't gonna pass any earmarks this year, but you know what happened? Republicans said, I need something so I can campaign on, so I can get reelected. So guess what? We go back to the State House, and magically, now all the Republicans are getting millions upon millions of dollars going to their specific areas so they can go back home and say, look what I did for my area. It is not about you.
She's running because District 16 deserves an engaged and visible representative who listens to constituents, who is willing to put people over party to solve these complex issues and deliver results for local families. The Democrats.
That's an advantage of having your husband be your leader. Everybody should have a bio read for them sometime in their life. I mean, it's just such an ego boost. But, for those of you who don't know what a Stephen minister is, it's a professionally trained caregiver of sorts. So whether you're facing the sudden loss of a child, a divorce, a woman that I'll refer to as Joan, who no longer hide the bruises with long sleeves or makeup, she was referred to me. Joan and I got a fast friendship, and we'd meet every week when her husband was out of town, and this was going on for over a year now. One of these days, when I came over to see her, as I was coming in the door, I got a whiff of this wonderful marinara sauce. Now, she's an old school Italian woman, and I mean, it smelled great. I'm coming in, looking at this sauce, and it's bubbling, and it's burping, and she's not stirring it fast enough, and there's sauce splashing on this white ceramic stovetop. I'm looking at this, thinking about, okay, it's almost time to eat, and she turns around to me, and I'm laughing at her because she's got some, sauce splashed up on her face. And then I realized this wasn't sauce. She had a huge knot on her forehead that had a laceration on top of it that was still oozing some blood, and she had some dried blood around the corner of her nostril. And as she hobbled to the kitchen chair to sit down, I could see the lumps, the bruises, and the knots on her shin that were already like black and blue and red. And I couldn't figure out what happened. It turns out her husband was out of town, but her 17-year-old son was home. He wanted chicken nuggets. He didn't want spaghetti for dinner. And that was it for me. That was when I decided that caring was not enough. I had to do something else. I had to move from being a caregiver into a change maker. So it turns out he had swung one of these huge Stanley thermoses, and hit her across the head, and he was wearing steel-toed boots, and that's what he had been kicking her with. So I feel like I'm at that point again, right now. There's a lot that's going on, and being with my friends and commiserating and caring isn't enough. It was time to stand up and do something. The high cost of groceries, gas prices, the tariffs, all these things are hurting people. And it's like each insult is another kick in the shin with a steel-toed boot. So that's why I'm running. I'm Lynn Ramirez. I'm running in South Carolina, State House 16, which is in the Simpsonville and Fountain Inn areas of of Greenville County, and it extends a little bit over into Lawrence County as well. So another concern of mine have been these AI hyperscale data centers. And I know they're a concern of yours also. I recently gave a presentation to a room full of concerned voters regarding this same issue. They're causing real harm to our communities and stressing a system unprepared to deal with the complexities that they bring and the non-existent guardrails and guidelines that we have currently. So I strongly support the joint resolution, House Bill 5526, that was presented in April during this past legislative session by one of our brilliant state representatives from District 52, you may know him, is Dr. Jermaine Johnson. So he proposed a moratorium on these large data centers until we could plan for the massive amount of energy and water that they require to use and to operate without hurting our communities, our infrastructure, and our environment. And until our lawmakers could establish a comprehensive regulatory network framework, and it went nowhere. It's still sitting in committee, just in case you're interested. The 18-year incumbent that I'm running against is Mark Willis. In addition to a federal lawsuit he is now facing for abusing his power in state government this year, he takes PAC money and corporate money from these utility and insurance companies and then gets to vote on the bills that decide whether or not they're allowed to raise your rates. Guess which way he's voting? So it's past time for finance reform. And that's another big thing I want to do. I take no PAC money, I take no corporate money. I'm not going to lose anything. My nearly 33,000 voters need to know what's going on and that they have a choice this time in this district for the first time in many, many years. The bulk of my campaign budget will be going toward digital media, mailers, and lip drops. We need to get the word out, and I could use your help. There are things you can do, and I'm urging you to do whatever you can, whenever you can, for as long as you can. Whether that's the financial support, canvassing, lip drops, text banking, call banking, house parties, amplifying candidates' social media. Any of those things will help. You're already here tonight, so I know we have a lot of people who care. What we need now are more change makers. So lastly, I want to share some insight, something I learned through my many years of collegiate coaching. If you want to win or succeed, it's really important to know who your opponent is. And I'm going to tell you, it's not the Republican. That is not who we're fighting against. We're fighting against poverty. We're fighting against injustice. We're fighting against a healthcare system that isn't working for most Americans. Okay? It's the corruption that we're looking at that's stealing our money, okay? And stealing our rights. And then they try to convince us that we didn't deserve it either. It's ignorance, it's arrogance, and it's greed. So I'm asking you to do anything you can, whatever that looks like, so that on the evening of November 3rd, you know you've done everything you could. Because if not, it's just like another kick in the shins with a steel-toed boot.